It's Wednesday. I'm in. Pick of the week. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. So I kind of got a lot to get to here, and I'm pretty tired. So I just have one pick for this week. This is Devil's Reign #1. This is the latest Marvel event, spiraling out of the happenings in Daredevil, the pages of Daredevil, and essentially Wilson Fisk here, the kingpin of crime, has gone legit, sort of, and is now mayor of the great city of New York. And he has decided that since they just had Bullseye running around and clones of Bullseye running around and all kinds of and Daredevil kind of took over Rikers Island and everything else. He's like, that's enough of this. So now it's sort of like well, he's banning superheroes from New York City, which is not the first time that sort of thing has come up. Obviously, the Civil War storyline from '07, that was on a national level that superheroes are going to be regulated by the government, not or otherwise banned. But this is the first time. This is the first time that Wilson Fisk has been the mayor that I can recollect, and he is kind of similar to Lex Luthor, so it makes sense because Lex Luthor has also been like president of the United States and stuff like that. So it makes sense that he's kind of making a move to the, like I say, he's trying to go legit, sort of, but he's still very much a criminal. And Daredevil, as I've mentioned earlier this year, I'm sure, has been really, really good lately. And so Chip Zdarsky is writing this as and Marco Cecchetto, who's been drawing Daredevil, is also the creative team on this. And it's an event, but not necessarily a crossover. But I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of heroes, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. The New York heroes are going to figure into this storyline. So yeah, it's fun. It's the first time I think Daredevil has been the center of an event / crossover since Shadowland, which was at least a decade ago, if not longer. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've really been enjoying Daredevil lately, so that is going to be fun. That was picks of the week. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-dee. And now, whatever the hell comes next. All right, so last week I only had 2 coming in. Oh, right. Speaking of Daredevil. Well, first I had Aquaman / Green Arrow Deep Target #1 and 2. This is really fun. This is written by Brandon Thomas, who's been writing, I believe, I just bought hardware, but I don't know if he's writing that. He's writing some of the Milestone stuff. He seems like he's doing a lot of stuff over at DC these days. And yeah, it's fun. This is also my favorite sort of mini series. It's a 7-issue series wherein we find that Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow, and Arthur Curry, the Aquaman, have somehow switched roles. So they woke up one day and Arthur Curry was the Green Arrow and Oliver Queen was the Aquaman. And they know that's not right, but the whole rest of the world is not. So they're trying to figure out what in the hay is going on. And yeah, so far it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. These two, I don't know that Aquaman and Green Arrow, I mean, they're both members of the Justice League, but I don't know that they've ever had a series together or anything like that. It's neither here nor there. I also, speaking of picks of the week, I read Daredevil #36. Now, this is the final. I think this is it for Zdarsky and Cecchetto. Or Manuel Garcia drew this one, but this is like an oversized issue. So I think this is the last of Zdarsky's run until Devil's Reign. So Matt's out of prison. The Kingpin is still the mayor. The Kingpin, one of his illegitimate sons, I'm assuming it's one of several, is making a play for Hell's Kitchen to be the crime boss there. Wilson Fisk marries Typhoid Mary. It's a bunch of craziness. I don't remember what there was I thought there was a specific reason that I wanted to talk about this So aside from the fact that it leads into Devil's Reign, but and like I mentioned Shadowland earlier. That was a storyline in which Daredevil became the head of the ninja clan known as the Hand, who had long been enemies of his, and I don't remember exactly how he comes into power there, but he kind of just rolls with it. He was like, all right, well, maybe I can change them from the inside. And then, of course, he becomes sort of evil. And so Hell's Kitchen becomes its own territory, it's property of the Hand. And I can't tell if the lighting is just terrible or who cares. And so eventually, all of the New York heroes have to kind of get together to take him down. And then once they do, very typical superhero comics fashion, he doesn't go to jail or anything. He goes to New Mexico for a while. Gets his head together, man. Just gotta, sometimes you just gotta go to Taos, find some ley lines or whatever the hell it is they do out there. But this is more. This wrap up felt much better. Daredevil got out of prison, and keep in mind that Matt Murdock's secret identity is again secret. It had been common knowledge for some time, but they redid that. They also made it so that even though Matt Murdock has gone to prison, this time Daredevil went to prison. The way the American justice system works in the Marvel universe currently is that superpowered individuals can be tried in a court of law, but they're only tried under their alias. They're not tried. He wasn't tried as Matt Murdock. He was tried as Daredevil, and then Daredevil went to prison for killing a guy. He wasn't even tried. I think he admitted to. I think he confessed to killing a guy. He killed a kid on accident. Kid, he's like a teenager, or like a early 20s. In the commission of trying to stop a crime, this kid died, and Daredevil was charged with murder, and he turned himself in. So there was no trial, but he went to prison as Daredevil. Sorry, I'm still a little off. I also finally finished this huge book, Monsters by Barry Windsor Smith. Now, I don't know if you'll recall, why would you? But back when I got this, I want to say in the first half of this year, before I moved into this place, and I was super excited. It's only $40 for this giant hardcover, which is a really good price point. And I've been a huge fan of Barry Windsor Smith since I was a kid. But when I started reading it, the first sort of act, I want to say it kind of has like 4 distinct parts. And the first part wasn't really doing it for me. His art has never been better. I mean, the guy's only gotten better. I don't know if you can see that. It's hard to, even if I could show it to you, all the cross hatching and the little things that he does are too subtle to be picked up on this laptop camera. The story follows this soldier by the name of Bobby Bailey, and in the beginning of the story, which takes place in 1964, he's being experimented on by the United States Army, trying to create like a super soldier type, and he becomes this big hulking monster. And then he escapes, and then while they're chasing him down, they chase him into his childhood home, where we then flash back to his childhood and the savage beatings and etc. abuse that his father exhibited to. I can't pull words tonight. We see that all from his mother's perspective. His mother, is this World War II wife. She married this guy right before he got called up to go to Europe. He never met his son. He finally comes back. It's like late. He doesn't come back until like 1949. And the kid's already 10. The guy, his father is clearly Like whatever he's seen overseas, it's definitely left its mark on him. And then it keeps going back. So first we see Bobby Bailey now as an actual monster. Then we see the monster that his father is. Then we see uh, his mother without like his mother just trying to keep things together before while he's at war, and then further back to what his father actually experiences in World War II in Europe, and it is brutal. So like the first act, for whatever reason, and I feel like if I can think back, for one thing, I just don't think I was in the right mindset to sit and read something this long. But also because the first act just kind of feels a little generic. I mean, I'll probably go back and read this all over again because it was that good. But the first act was this just kind of generic, the government experiments and the poor soldier kid and all this other stuff. But as you get further and further back into his childhood, it's just, for one thing, it's just agonizing. It's so sad and so dark, and it's so good. And yeah, I mean, I was choked up several times. So like obviously, the longer I read, the more depth everything had to it until it gets weird in some places, and it's still in a lot of places very much kind of just sci-fi horror story. But ultimately, it is a story about monsters, about not just scary boogeyman type monsters, but just the sorts of horrors that humans can inflict upon one another, even those that they love, but not necessarily. I mean, just in general, though, what kind of and the Nazis show up towards the end, and boy, do they really take the monster cake. You know how those Nazis are. So yeah, it's great. I can't recommend this enough. If this doesn't win a million awards this year, then well, awards are dumb. And as beautiful and savage as that book was, my absolute favorite pick of this week, Avengers number 50 or number 750, depending on where you're counting from. And this is going to take a while because I want to go through this. Jason Aaron has been writing the Avengers now for at least 2 or 3 years, and he's built a lot of. Now I want to say for at least like 5 years now, and he's got a lot of storylines going, not at once, but there's just a lot of different things happening, and we see the culmination of a lot of those in this issue, which is an oversized $10 issue worth every penny. This was the most fun I had reading a comic book in a very long time, and I have a lot of fun reading comics. So I wanted to go through. There's a lot of sections. I just kind of wanted to go through. Right. We begin with the Orb. The Orb was a minor villain when I was a kid in the 90s, I want to say. And he became a little more of a player in the Marvel Universe during the original Sin crossover, which I want to say was in 2014, 2013, somewhere in there. And Jason Aaron also wrote that. So the Orb, a minor villain, but he ended up absorbing the power of the Watcher, and it drove him even crazier. We also find Kazar, Kevin Plunder, who has his own title now, is fighting Kid Thanos, and he's in a time that he doesn't know. Yeah, he's at the beginning of time where the Avengers of 1 million BC are also, and that's been a team that has come up in the Avengers. I want to say over like the last 5 years. So this might not work out, me doing all this. But I just kind of I was like, there's so many things happening in this issue. I wanted to have it on record for myself when I watch this in a few weeks. We also have in Avengers Mountain, which is at the North Pole and in the body of a long dead Celestial, is their home base. And Gorilla Man, who was one of the agents of Atlas, worked at Avengers Mountain. Like he was one of the agents of Wakanda, which because Black Panther has been the leader of the Avengers for the last 5 years, even when he was off planet for a couple of years. And So he enlisted a bunch of just other superheroes. Okoye, who is the leader of the Dora Milaje, which is Wakanda's elite army, royal guard. So she was the head of the Agents of Wakanda, and then like Kazar and a bunch of other weird. It was one of my favorite books for the year that it was being published because it was very Defendersy. Those are some of my favorite Marvel team books. Are the Champions or the Defenders or the Agents of Wakanda, or there was a Strike Force team a couple years ago. Weird, just very slapped together almost teams, but they're fun to watch. Like Brew and Mockingbird be on the same team. We also building up into directly into the storyline. We have the World War She-Hulk storyline, wherein She-Hulk is taken to Moscow to be put on trial for a crime she committed against the Ruskies, and they brainwash her into being like part of the Winter Guard, being a force for uh, Mother Russia. And it turns out it was all she was deep undercover. She went in on purpose, and it worked. She was able to defeat the Winter Guard, and she ends up absorbing a bunch more gamma radiation because she'd been kind of hulkier than usual. But by the end of this story, she becomes just normal Jennifer Walters again. Normal. She's still green and massive, but she's a lawyer and she's back. That's always been She-Hulk's thing, was that the Incredible Hulk is this big scary monster guy. She-Hulk is really just a foxy broad who happens to be like an Amazon and have green skin. Okay, moving right along. So yeah, there's a big trial, and Jennifer, of course, defends herself because she's an attorney. All is well there. We go back to 1 million BC, where we find there is a multiversal Masters of Evil consisting of Doctor Doom, who is actually the Sorcerer Supreme of his world, and he's got a bunch of other. I get to that team because they are something. Well, I guess they'll show up later. There's this other two-page spread of a bunch of other ancient Avengers. Oh my gosh, so much fun. So much fun, so much fun. So, right. Kazar first meets these new Masters of Evil, and then back we go to the Ghost Rider, who is currently Robbie Reyes. Instead of a motorcycle, he has a souped-up hot rod. He's from East Los Angeles. Um, and he's starting to come to pieces. And they're gonna this whole thing with the multiversal Masters of Evil, which is the Masters of Evil, has been a long term team of villains. Very imaginative name. And I think Baron Zemo was the original founder of the Masters of Evil, but they've gone through a lot of different changes. This Masters of Evil, as I say, it consists of villains from a bunch of disparate timelines. And Robbie Reyes, they're going to launch a title soon called Avengers Forever, which I'm very excited for because Exiles is like this, Extreme X-Men was like this, the second series, um, where there's a bunch of different uh, timelines and there's a bunch of different events. So now they're going to have that, and I love that sort of. Ba, 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 ba. Namor the Submariner has been deposed by his own people, or they've just split Atlantis, so he's the king of nothing now. And it's weird. It's weird seeing Namor laid low. Ah, yes. We also find out that the Red Widow, who is part of the Winter Guard, has Hyperion of the Squadron Supreme uh, captive, and the rest of the Squadron Supreme shows up for that. Jason Aaron also wrote that Heroes Return thing from earlier this year. Deathlock shows up. That's never a good sign for anybody. Deathlock is a cyborg from the future. There's actually tons of them, but it was originally just a guy who just, cyborg. But whenever a Deathlock comes back to the present, everybody goes, "Oh, the Deathlock is here. We're gonna be in trouble." Gorilla Man is somewhat. He ended up being he ended up betraying the Avengers, and now I don't remember how. Because that happened years ago, and they never got back to it until like this year. So I lost track of that thread a while ago. Oh yes, of course. Kazar shows up at the beginning of time. And who else shows up there? Howard Stark, Anthony's father. And this particular Howard Stark is again from another timeline, different from the 616, wherein instead of founding Shield or helping to co-found Shield as he does in the 616 universe, he is determined to see the future. So he becomes evil. He makes a deal with Mephisto, ends up killing his own kid. It's really brutal stuff. But Howard Stark has never been a sympathetic character. He doesn't even show up that often. I think the only reason they're showing him up now is because of the MCU and stuff. And then, so Kazar fights him, and then he ends up finding Galactus. So I think this is a Galactus from a different universe as well. We'll come back to that. Here we go back to the right. So we have in this multiversal Masters of Evil, the Age of the Masters of Evil. We have Doom Supreme. You have Kid Thanos, very fun character. The Black Skull, which is a venomized version of the Red Skull. Killmonger, who is now in his reality the king of Wakanda and of Asgard. So Killmonger is wearing the Destroyer armor, and then it's in the fold, so you can't really see it. We'll get. I mean, it's hard to. So then we have a Green Goblin Ghost Rider, right? And that's like a Wolverine, but I don't remember who this lady is. So we'll come back to that. What else we got? Valkyrie shows up. She's always a peach. All right, Deathlock. So Deathlock and Ghost Rider. Deathlock's like, hey, Ghost Rider, we got to go to the multiverse and get all these other Masters of Evil out of the way. And so they do. Or so they begin to. I'm very much looking forward to Avengers Forever. The Ghost Goblin. Ah, yes. This lady is the Dark Phoenix. She looks a lot like Madame Mask. Like she has that same sort of mask, and this is her pet Berserker, who's clearly Wolverine. Man, what a great team. They kill the orb. Whoops. And Kazar is in a different timeline where he has become the Herald of Galactus. That's some bananas stuff way out of nowhere. So yeah, and that's it. There's one other story about Thor as a younger man, a younger god anyway. Oh right. So, whew. I mean, this was just I couldn't stop giggling like an idiot reading this comic book. It was so much fun. Avengers number 50. That receives my Eisner Award for best comic book of the year. That was picks of last week. But up. Right, I gotta go call my old lady and eat dinner. You do the same. Okay, bye.